Hello, my name is Kristen Orr, and I am the tech paralegal at the Center for Elder Law and Justice.
And my name is Erin Riker, and I'm the technology-based legal services attorney at Center for Elder Law and Justice.
Welcome to our Senior Financial Safety Tool Financial Exploitation Training. What is financial exploitation? It can be defined as the unlawful or improper use of someone's funds or resources. Financial exploitation is a multi-billion-dollar industry costing seniors over $2.9 billion each year. It's important to note that only 1 in 44 incidents of financial abuse are reported to the authorities. So some key statistics of financial exploitation. 9 out of 10 perpetrators are family members of the victim, which is why victims often do not report their abuse. They are trying to protect a loved one. An older adult who loses as little as $20 per year to exploitation is expected to lose an additional $2,000 per year to other types of fraud. Once someone has been the victim of financial exploitation, they are often constantly pursued for money thereafter. Also, answering one telemarketing phone call per day is likely to result in up to 3 times as much financial loss for the senior. Once you answer a scammer's phone call, even if you hang up on them, you will get more and more calls because now they know that that is a valid phone number, that someone is on the other end, and they might pick up again. If someone is home alone, isolated, and engaging with a scammer, they are more likely to continue that behavior even after they've been victimized.
There are some conditions that increase risk, and these affect seniors more often than the other parts of society. Decreased physical health and mobility, someone who's home more often because of their physical health conditions or mobility conditions is more likely to answer the phone. Decline in capacity due to age-related degenerative brain diseases that can cause some confusion or forgetfulness. Social isolation, or on the other hand, being a social butterfly. If someone is socially isolated, then they're going to want to pick up the phone when it answers because maybe they haven't talked to anyone in a few days and they need some human contact. Or if someone is really outgoing, they will want to answer the phone when it rings, and they will be of the personality that they'll want to talk to the scammer because they just enjoy talking to people. An increased dependency on caregivers. This can make someone more at risk for financial abuse by a caregiver, which is the most common type of financial abuse against seniors. Or on the other hand, poor family relationships or a history of mental health problems, drug abuse, and gambling. Being victimized by financial exploitation can be exacerbated if someone does not have a trusted family member looking out for them. If someone is already in some financial trouble due to some other factors, such as mental health problems, drug abuse, or gambling, they may see the scammer's opportunity as a get-rich-quick scheme that could fix their problems, when in reality, it's just a scam. Let's talk a little bit about capacity. Capacity is a cluster of mental skills, memory, and logic, as well as behavioral and physical functioning that individuals use in everyday life. Capacity is not binary, it's a continuum of decision-making abilities, and it is rarely lost completely. We need to assume that someone has capacity unless they are proven otherwise. Capacity can also change over time and based on various situations and tasks. A person might have capacity to recognize that someone calling them claiming to be a Nigerian prince who wants them to help move $9 million out of the country might be a scam, but that same person might not have the capacity to recognize that someone calling claiming to be their grandchild might be a scammer as well. So capacity is really important to note that it is situation-based and it's a continuum. There are a lot of factors that make it up. So it's rarely just a binary decision as to whether someone has or does not have capacity.
So there are other effects of financial abuse besides the financial loss. Seniors may experience depression and anxiety. They might skip meals or doctor's appointments, either due to their depression or because they simply can't afford it due to their loss of funds. They may lose other assets that are important to them, like a family home or sentimental items. It can be hard on caregivers as well. Again, depression and anxiety. It's hard to watch someone you love go through this. If you're spending all your time and emotional energy assisting your victimized loved one, your other personal relationships might suffer as well. If the perpetrator is another family member, that can, of course, cause conflict. And if you're taking time off of work to deal with the situation, or you aren't fully present at work, your career can suffer as well, as a caregiver of a senior suffering from financial abuse. So what can you do? Know your clients, try and establish personal relationships with them, and pay attention if something seems off. Understand the banking habits of seniors. Try and detect abnormal activity. If someone is suddenly overdrawing their account or withdrawing large sums of cash when they're not used to doing that, that is a sign that something may be wrong. Seniors tend to rely on pensions and Social Security and generally have a fixed income and often have regimented banking habits, so it can sometimes be easier to identify when those habits change. If you do detect suspicious activity, ask your client if you can use the Senior Financial Safety tool, and if you're a bank employee, you can file a suspicious activity report. It's important to note that SAR filings, suspicious activity report filings on financial exploitation, quadrupled from 2013 to 2017. By the numbers, financial institutions reported a total of $1.7 billion in suspicious activities in 2017. That's both actual money lost and attempts to steal funds. Over a third of the individuals who lost money were over 80 years old. Adults 70 to 79 have the highest average monetary loss at $45,300. The losses were greater when the adult knew the suspect. So again, a family member or friend or caregiver taking advantage of that relationship. And 7% of losses involved a fiduciary relationship. So what happens after the SAR is filed? Well, the SAR filings have increased. Reports and referrals to law enforcement and adult protective services have not increased at the same rate. The Senior Financial Safety tool helps address this by serving as a referral system, a referral and detection system to assist our community partners in providing these necessary services to older victims of financial abuse. Protection over privacy, the Graham-Leach-Bliley compliance clarification. In 2013, 8 federal regulatory agencies issued a joint document clarifying the privacy rights and responsibilities for employees of financial institutions. It said that financial institutions can disclose non-public personal information to law enforcement investigating suspected financial abuse of older adults. So this means that if you suspect someone is a victim of financial abuse or exploitation, you can make that referral without retribution in order to get that older adult the assistance that they need.
So let's go over some common warning signs that a senior is being financially exploited, so you know what you can be on the lookout for. There's suspicious activity in financial transactions that will jump out as very common in financial exploitation situations. Any activity that deviates from normal banking patterns. As we've said, seniors, they tend to have a fixed income. They tend to have habits that are pretty set in stone as far as their financial spending. If someone regularly withdraws $30 every week and all of a sudden they're withdrawing $30,000 or even $300, that deviates from their norm, and that could be a red flag that something's going wrong. Also, uncommon ATM or debit card use, or using inactive accounts, or withdrawals being made from accounts that are not normally active. If someone does not use the ATM or their debit card very often, and all of a sudden a debit card from associated with an account is being used all the time, that is a red flag that someone might be being financially exploited. Suspicious signatures or handwriting in different pens, that could mean that someone is forging the senior's signature in order to financially exploit them. If someone does not overdraw their account very often or at all, and all of a sudden they're doing it frequently, that's a red flag for financial exploitation. Also, checks written out of sequence could be a sign that someone is taking checks from the senior's checkbook and writing them to themselves, or writing them in order to steal money. And any atypical electronic activity. If someone's never done online banking despite having been a customer for 10, 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden they're doing it all the time. If someone has never initiated a wire transfer and now they're doing 2 or 3 of them per week, that is a red flag that something's going on as far as financial exploitation is concerned. There's also suspicious activity with regard to relationships that you can look for. Someone suddenly opening a joint account. If a person has always had an account on their own and all of a sudden is adding a joint member, you may want to ask them why they're adding that joint member, and what the purpose is of that joint member being on the account. Sudden changes of power of attorney or account beneficiary, these could have legitimate explanations, but you just maybe want to ask your customer or the senior that you're working with why the power of attorney changed or why the beneficiary changed. Mail being redirected to a new address. If you're seeing mail being directed to a new address all of a sudden, and it's not somewhere that's local to the senior, or it's an address that the senior has never used, you might want to ask them why, or confirm that that is the senior's address and not the address of someone who's trying to exploit them. Also, a stranger or new friends or relatives who suddenly appear interested in the senior's finances, or asserting their right to guide the senior in their finances. Someone coming into the bank all of a sudden and telling the senior what to do, speaking over the senior, saying that they're the one who's going to handle the senior's finances. You really want to make sure that the senior is okay with that behavior. And a great way to do that is just to ask to speak with them alone for a minute, and just ask them, let them know that this is their money, they're in control of it. Do you want this person helping you, or is this person an unsafe person to be around? Changes in customers, opening inappropriate investments, opening investments that might not be beneficial to that specific type of customer. Any change in affect or physical mental status. If someone is usually pretty happy and has a sunny disposition, and all of a sudden they're coming in looking worried all the time, or being sad or depressed, that could be a red flag that something's going on. Again, most financial exploitation is not reported, especially right away. And so a senior might be dealing with this on their own, which leads to a change in their personality. Someone becoming increasingly dependent on a single caregiver or a single person. If a senior normally has a lot of people with whom they associate, and now they are just with this one person, that person could be isolating them in order to make it easier to financially exploit them. Also, a person who seems nervous or afraid around a caregiver. This goes back to the relationships between caregivers that come into the bank and may try and talk over the senior or silence them. Or any change in physical appearance or hygiene could reflect that something's going on with the senior. These are red flags, and they may mean that you maybe want to take them aside and ask them if everything is okay, offer them a free financial health checkup with the Senior Financial Safety Tool, and make sure that they know that you are paying attention so that they can report the financial exploitation to you and feel more comfortable in doing so. Okay, how can we ask our clients the tough questions? Asking someone if they're being financially exploited is never going to be an easy conversation. You may want to approach it in a more conversational manner. Don't approach it as you're accusing someone right away, because as we said, most financial exploitation happens with family, friends, or caregivers. And so the senior client is not going to want to implicate their family or friends right away. Um, some suggestions for how to start this conversation. Just mentioning that the transaction seems a bit out of the ordinary. Do you mind if I ask a few questions? Or how well do you know the person that you're sending money to? I see that you've brought a new friend with you. How did you guys meet? Or how did you know each other? Can I ask you just for a little more information about this transaction? Just be conversational, don't alarm them. And screening tools like the Senior Financial Safety Tool can guide your discussion, especially when you frame it as just offering the customer a free financial health checkup that'll take 5 to 10 minutes to complete. And then you'll be able to get the information that you need to determine whether someone might be at risk for financial exploitation without causing them alarm.
So here are some of the top 9 scams that we often see. This is from TrueLink Financial. I'll touch on a few that we have seen at the Center for Elder Law and Justice. First, the sweepstakes scam. So in this scenario, the senior gets a letter or a phone call that they have won a prize, but they need to send money for processing fees or to pay the taxes up front. Maybe they've won a luxury car, but they need to pay $5,000 in advance for shipping. This is always a scam. If you need to pay up front, that's not a prize, that's a scam, especially if it's a contest that they don't remember entering. Organizations aren't in the habit of just handing out billions of dollars or free cars. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. The grandparent scam, this one's been around for a while, and it's still very prevalent. Scammers will call in the middle of the night or the early morning when people tend to be more confused, pretending to be a grandchild or a loved one, saying that there's been an emergency. Maybe they are in the hospital or they've been arrested and they need cash immediately. And please don't tell mom and dad. So the secrecy here is obviously a red flag. There's always time to verify someone's story. This scam thrives on the sense of urgency. There's no time to check out the story. There's no time to call mom and dad. Please keep it a secret from them and just send the cash. There's always time to verify someone's story and verify the caller's identity. If you see a senior taking out large sums of cash, they seem distraught or upset, and they say something like this is going on, encourage them to call a family member or a trusted loved one and just see what's really going on. There's always time to verify the story. And then charity scams really focus on tugging on seniors' heartstrings. Requesting money, this could be someone impersonating a well-known charity. Maybe their names are very similar to a well-known charity, or their mailers sort of impersonate something that the senior might recognize. Or now with the prevalence of GoFundMe's, if you can't verify where the money is going with a GoFundMe or with a charity that has reached out to you, it's best not to donate. Charities, well-respected charities, have their own methods for getting donations. They generally don't cold call. And if a senior does want to donate to a reputable organization, they can always go to charitynavigator.org to confirm a charitable organization's legitimacy. Power of attorney, what is it? The legal definition is a power of attorney, or abbreviated as POA, is a legal document in which an individual known as the principal gives authority to a third party known as the agent to perform certain tasks and conduct business on the principal's behalf. The POA document, excuse me, lists the various tasks that the agent is authorized to undertake for the principal. They can list specific items or an all of the above option, but the POA document will have to list out explicitly everything that the agent is authorized to do. It's also considered a substituted decision-making document.
Okay, let's talk about some plain language about the power of attorney. There is one principal, typically an older adult, who designates one or more agents. The principal can also appoint successor agents whose power only becomes active if the primary agents are no longer able to serve. The agents are commonly referred to as the power of attorney or attorney in fact. They act on the granted authority, those specific authorities that were listed out in the POA document, and they importantly must always act in the principal's financial best interests. The agents have a fiduciary duty to make decisions that will be best for the principal. And also important to note that agents can act at any time after the document is executed, even if the principal has full capacity. When to honor a power of attorney, the law provides that a financial institution can reasonably refuse to honor a power of attorney document under the following circumstances. If the agent refuses to provide an original copy, or if the bank knows or reasonably believes that the agent may be abusing the principal, or that the power of attorney was obtained fraudulently or under undue influence, or if the bank knows that the power of attorney being presented to them has been revoked. If you suspect abuse, there are a few things you can do as far as the power of attorney is concerned. The first is verify. Verify that there's the authority to conduct the transaction. Look at the power of attorney to see which powers are granted and whether or not this transaction is among them. Ask to see the power of attorney. You are always allowed to ask to see the document, even if it's been presented to the bank before. Inquire about the agent's relationship to the customer and verify the agent's identity in any way that you can. The second is to isolate. Try to speak with the customer alone and ask questions about the transaction when it is safe to do so. If the agent is there with the customer, you may just want to tell them that you need to speak with the customer just to verify the power of attorney and get them alone in order to ask them what the transaction is and if it's legitimate. Pay attention to how the customer reacts when you question the power of attorney. If the customer gets a little nervous, or if the customer seems overly relieved that someone is noticing that they're being exploited, these might be signs that the abuse is happening. And do anything to slow down the transaction if you need to, and make sure that the customer is comfortable proceeding. Tell them that your computer is running more slowly, tell them that you need management approval, anything to slow it down to make sure to give yourself enough time to verify that this is a proper transaction with a proper agent that's being conducted in the principal's best interest. And along that vein is delay and inform. Inform your manager if you think a power of attorney is being abused. Follow your chain of command. Every organization has one. Or ask the customer if you can conduct a quick screening with the senior financial safety tool. You can ask them when you see the power of attorney that, if we have the free financial health checkup that we can give them that will only take 5 to 10 minutes. And as with everything else, if you see something, say something. If you see suspected abuse, make sure to say something to one of your supervisors.
So communication is obviously very important, especially when dealing with older populations. So you should always consider that there may be communication barriers. Not everyone has access to a computer or a smartphone, so there may be some confusion over specific technology or terminology that you use, especially if you are very familiar with the technology that you're using. Seniors may not be familiar with things like online banking or wire transfers. Often abuse victims have a strong emotional response. So often they can be afraid or angry, and that can impact your conversation as well. So it's good to just be aware that what the person is responding to, if they seem to be, if in your opinion, overreacting or overly upset, it's likely not you, it's the abuse. And then a lot of seniors have difficulty with their vision or hearing. Remember that they may have difficulty just hearing what you have to say physically, or they might have issues seeing the screen or papers in front of them. So make sure to talk it over slowly with them. Make sure that they understand what you're saying, what they're looking at. Encourage them to ask questions to clarify. And then it's important to use clear and concise language. Use language that is easy to understand. Ask open-ended questions so you don't guide them to an answer, and actually listen to their responses. Don't assume that you know the situation. Don't assume you know what they're going to say. Open-ended questions allow them to explain what's going on, as opposed to being led to what they think you think is the right answer. Of course, treat all older adults with respect and dignity, and give them appropriate time to think and respond. This may not be a quick conversation. They may need time to think about what you said, think about what's going on, and process that in their own way. Offer to follow up with them after your conversation to reiterate what you talked about, and offer a screening with the Senior Financial Safety Tool. It's a great way to encourage and help guide the conversation. So working with adult protective services or protective services for adults, New York State does not require mandatory reporting in cases of elder abuse, with the exception that certain facilities and protective services for adults or adult protective services are mandated reporters. However, any individual who becomes concerned about an elderly or impaired adult can certainly call their local APS. For those who do call, Social Services Law 473B provides immunity from civil liability to any person who, in good faith, refers an adult whom they believe may need protective services.
You can also work with the Center for Elder Law and Justice. We're available to answer any questions that you may have. We have close relationships with the local departments of the aging for various counties, with APS departments across various counties, and with other agencies that assist older adults. We also have relationships with the Enhanced Multidisciplinary Team across Western New York. These teams bring together stakeholders from many different offices: law enforcement, APS, medical, banking, and legal, in order to combat all forms of elder abuse. The Senior Financial Safety Tool was specifically created to provide you with a mechanism to make referrals to CELJ if they're appropriate. You can, of course, offer a free financial screening for someone even if they do not want a referral for legal services, but it's a great way to get something over to our office if you think that someone is in need of legal assistance.